Welcome, survivors. Today's story is not like the others. This is a confession from inside the Raider world, a first-person account of how the Commonwealth's most brutal gangs are really made, how torture replaces choice, and how the line between victim and monster disappears, one decision at a time. The recording begins now. The tape is running. That is all that matters right now. My hands shake as I press record. Same tremor I have seen in others. The ones who ate what we should not have eaten. The ones who crossed lines that cannot be uncrossed. I am in the basement of what used to be called Lexington, hiding behind rusted filing cabinets while my former brothers search the floors above. They will find me eventually. They always do. But before that happens, someone needs to know the truth about what Raiders really are, what we become, and how few of us chose this life willingly. My name does not matter anymore. I signed it away in blood 3 years ago. People think Raiders wake up one morning and decide to be monsters. They imagine we are born with something missing, some fundamental piece of humanity just absent from birth. They are wrong. Most of us were taken, captured, broken down piece by piece until the person we were could not remember their own name, could not recall what their mother's voice sounded like, could not summon the will to resist anymore. I was a traitor once. Can you believe that? I sold water purification tablets along the routes between settlements. Clean water meant life. I believed I was helping people survive. The day they took me started like any other. I was traveling the road between County Crossing and Nordhagen Beach. The sun sat high. The radiation storm stayed distant. My pack felt heavy with goods that would feed my family for months. Then I saw the signs. Friendly signs, welcoming signs. Purified water ahead. Traders welcome. Lights strung along a pathway leading to what looked like an old school building. I should have known better. Anybody who survives more than a month in the Commonwealth learns that kindness is the most dangerous bait of all. But I was tired, thirsty, and the promise of civilization made me stupid. They grabbed me the moment I stepped through the door. 5 of them, maybe 6. Hands like iron vises clamping around my arms, my throat, dragging me down hallways that smelled like copper and decay. I screamed. Of course I screamed. Everyone screams the first time. They laughed at that, the kind of laughter that comes from people who have forgotten what joy sounds like, who only remember the shape of the emotion without the substance. The judge sat in what used to be the principal's office. I learned later his name was Zeller, but we never called him that. Always the judge. He was a big man. Scars crossing his face like a roadmap of violence. Eyes that looked through you rather than at you. He explained the situation calmly, almost kindly, which somehow made it worse. I would join his jury, he said. I would sign the blood contract. I would swear my life to him until the end, upon pain of torture and death. Those were not threats. They were procedures. He gave me a choice, he claimed. Sign now or sign later after they showed me what later meant. I refused. I was still me then. Still believed I had a choice. They took me to the cells, empty makeshift cages built in the school's basement. The terminal entries would later document what happened next. They documented everything, kept records like we were laboratory specimens rather than human beings. Subject 17. They called me resistant to initial persuasion. Recommended escalation. The torture started small. Hunger, thirst, cold. They would leave me in the dark for days, then flood the cell with blinding light, then dark again until I could not tell if my eyes were open or closed. When that did not break me, they moved to pain. Do you know what it feels like to have your teeth removed one by one with pliers? I do. I can describe the exact sound the roots make when they tear free from the gums, the way blood fills your mouth faster than you can spit, the phantom ache that remains years later where those teeth used to be. They burned me with heated metal, close enough to scar but careful not to kill. Death would have been mercy. They never granted mercy. On the 7th day, or maybe it was the 17th, time became meaningless. They brought in another prisoner, a young woman who had been captured the same day as me. She had not broken either. They beat her in front of me, methodically, professionally, each strike calculated to cause maximum pain without ending her life too quickly. They made me watch. When she finally stopped screaming, when her eyes found mine through the blood and the swelling, She whispered something I did not understand then. She said, "Sign it, just sign it. Nothing is worth this." She was right. I signed the blood contract on the 10th day. With my blood I do swear my life to the judge and his jury until the end, upon pain of torture and death. The words felt like vomit in my mouth, but I spoke them. I pressed my torn fingers to the paper, leaving prints in my own blood. The judge smiled. "Welcome to the family," he said. "Now the real education begins." They did not release me immediately. Breaking someone and training them are different processes, Zeller explained over the next weeks. He needed to be sure the breaking was complete, that I understood my new place in the world. So they kept me in that cell, but now they brought me food, water, even medicine for my wounds. Small mercies designed to create gratitude, to make me associate relief with obedience. It worked. Pavlov did his experiments on dogs, the judge did his on people, and the results were identical. The first time they sent me on a raid, I thought I might run. Just sprint into the wasteland and never look back. But they paired me with veterans, men and women who had been jury members for years, who watched me with the eyes of people who had seen 100 others try to run. More importantly, they had given me psycho before we left, pumped me full of chems until my veins felt like they carried fire instead of blood, until violence seemed not just acceptable but necessary, inevitable, beautiful in its simplicity. We hit a small settlement south of Oberlin Station, just 3 families trying to grow crops in irradiated soil. They had nothing worth taking except their lives. That did not matter. The judge had ordered it, so we went. The chems made everything distant, like I was watching someone else's hands pull the trigger, someone else's feet kick in doors, someone else's voice screaming threats at people who looked exactly like I used to look. I killed 2 people that night. A man who tried to protect his daughter, the daughter who tried to avenge her father. Their faces should haunt me. Instead, they blur together with dozens of others, hundreds of others. A parade of the dead that I stopped counting after the first month. The judge was right about one thing. Once you cross certain lines, going back becomes impossible, not because the path behind you disappears, but because you cannot bear to see what you left in your wake. The jury grew. Others were captured, tortured, broken, remade. Some signed their contracts willingly after watching what happened to the resistant ones. Smart, survival instinct, I did not blame them. I became one of the veterans, one of the watchers, one of the people who made sure new recruits understood their only choice was obedience. The irony was not lost on me. I had become my own torturers. When you stare into the abyss long enough, the abyss does not just stare back. It reaches out and pulls you in, makes you part of itself. The hierarchy was simple, brutal, effective. The judge ruled absolutely. Below him sat his enforcers, the ones who had proven themselves through years of service and exceptional cruelty. Below them came veterans like me, reliable killers who could be trusted to train new meat. At the bottom cowered the fresh recruits, still fighting their conscience, still believing they might escape or die or wake up from this nightmare. They learned eventually. We all did. We ate when we wanted, took what we wanted, killed who we wanted. The Commonwealth belonged to us in the spaces between the settlements, in the ruins and the wastes where civilization's light could not reach. Other raider gangs operated nearby, each with their own territories, their own customs. We heard stories about the gangs out in Nuka World, the disciples who wore masks and worshipped violence, the pack who dressed like animals and fought like them, the operators who ran raiding like a business. We heard about the cannibals up north, the ones whose hands shook from Kuru disease. We heard about everything, and we participated in most of it. The judge encouraged experimentation. Try new things, he would say. Find what works for you, what gives you that edge. Some of us developed tastes for specific violence. Some preferred blades, close and personal. Others liked explosives, the artistry of destruction from distance. A few discovered they enjoyed the psychological torture more than the physical, breaking minds before bodies. I found I had a talent for interrogation, for making people talk, for extracting information from prisoners before we decided their final use, slave or corpse. I want to be clear about something. I am telling you this not to excuse myself, not to claim I am a victim. Yes, I was forced into this life. Yes, The torture and the chems and the constant violence rewired something fundamental in my brain. But at some point, I cannot tell you exactly when, I stopped resisting. I started enjoying it. The power. The fear in people's eyes. The knowledge that I could decide if someone lived or died with a gesture. That was not the chems. That was not the torture. That was me discovering something that had always been there. Waiting for permission to emerge. You might judge me for that. You should. But ask yourself honestly, what would you have done? When every day brings pain or the promise of pain, when the only relief comes from obedience, when the chems flood your system and make violence feel like love, would you have been stronger? Would you have held on to who you were before? Most people believe they would. Most people are wrong. I know because I watched hundreds of them discover this truth the same way I did. If this story has kept you here, if you want to understand where this confession leads, I ask only that you consider sharing it. Not for me, for whoever might need the warning. The Wasteland has enough monsters. Maybe knowing how we are made can help stop more from being created. The recording continues. My hands still shake. The footsteps above grow closer. But there is more to tell. And if I am going to leave anything behind, it needs to be the whole truth. The descent into darkness, yes, but also what finally made me remember, I used to be human. The thing about Raider life that nobody tells you, the thing you only learn by living it, is how normal it becomes. That is the real horror. Not the violence itself, but how quickly violence transforms from nightmare into routine. Within 6 months of signing my blood contract, I woke up each morning, and the first thought in my head was not escape, or suicide, or rescue. It was breakfast. What chems were available? Which settlements we would hit that week? The same mundane concerns as any worker heading to their job, except my job involved deciding how many bullets to put in a traitor's skull. The judge ran East Boston Prep like a military operation, though he would have killed anyone who made that comparison. Military meant rules, structure, something higher than yourself. We had none of that. We had efficiency. We had productivity quotas. If you did not bring back enough caps, enough supplies, enough slaves for the market, you answered to the enforcers. Their methods made the initial torture seem gentle by comparison. They had years of practice, you see. Years to develop creativity. I remember a man named Thomas who had been jury for 2 years, longer than most. He came back from a raid empty-handed, claimed the settlement had been abandoned before they arrived. The judge did not believe him, thought Thomas had hidden the loot somewhere, planning to retrieve it later and desert. So they hung Thomas upside down from the gymnasium ceiling, opened small cuts along his arms and legs, let him bleed slowly into buckets placed beneath. Took him 3 days to die. They made all of us watch in shifts. The lesson was clear. Failure meant suffering. Disloyalty meant suffering. Only success earned you the privilege of continued existence. But success brought its own corruption. The more effective you became, the more responsibility they gave you. The more responsibility, the deeper you sank into the machinery of it all. I was promoted to lead my own raiding party after 8 months. 5 people under my command. My responsibility to train and discipline and deploy. I taught them everything Zeller's enforcers had taught me. How to identify weak settlements. How to maximize terror with minimum ammunition. How to break someone's will with psychological pressure before ever drawing a weapon. How to sort prisoners into categories. Useful versus disposable. We developed a system. Always did. Systems make horror sustainable. Quick raids for supplies. Smash and grab. Minimum contact. Extended sieges for strategic locations. Starve them out. Make them beg to surrender. Kidnapping runs for the slave markets. Young and healthy preferred. Old and sick left behind with bullets. Each type of operation had its own protocols, its own rhythm. I became good at it. Too good. The judge noticed. He called me to his office one night, same office where I had first refused to sign the contract. The irony did not escape either of us. He poured me actual pre-war whiskey, the real stuff, worth more caps than most settlements saw in a year, told me I had potential, said I understood the philosophy better than most. Philosophy? That was his word for it, as if systematic brutality qualified as intellectual thought. But I nodded, drank the whiskey, felt the warmth spread through my chest and pretended it was pride instead of shame. He wanted me to take on a special project. There was a gang operating out of DB Technical High School, led by a psychotic named Bosco. They had been making moves on our territory, hitting settlements the judge considered his. Normally this would mean war, quick and brutal, wipe them out entirely. But Zeller had a different idea. He wanted to absorb them, capture Bosco, break him the same way we had all been broken, integrate his people into the jury, expand the operation, build something bigger. I led the assault myself. 12 jury members, armed with combat rifles and fragmentation grenades, pumped full of psycho and jet until we felt invincible. We hit the high school at dawn, when raiders sleep deepest, when the chems from the night before still cloud judgment. It should have been easy. We outnumbered them, outgunned them, had the element of surprise. But Bosco was not in his usual quarters. He had moved to the basement, paranoid and deteriorating, seeing enemies everywhere. We found him in the swimming pool room, wearing a bear mascot head, surrounded by the corpses of his own people. He had killed them all, his entire gang, slaughtered them in some psychotic break, convinced they were plotting against him. When he saw us, he did not run or fight. He laughed. That horrible sound echoing off tile walls, distorted by the mask, barely human anymore. I shot him. Center mass, 3 rounds, watched him collapse into the drained pool. The bear head rolled away, came to rest against a pile of bones. His face underneath looked relieved, like death was the mercy he had been begging for. We searched the building anyway, looking for supplies, anything valuable. I found Bosco's terminal in what used to be the principal's office. Different school, but same setup as ours. Read through his entries, watched his descent from ruthless gang leader to paranoid lunatic, tracked the progression of his madness day by day. Started with blackouts after his dog bit him, probably rabies, maybe something worse. Moved to paranoia, then hallucinations, then complete psychotic break. The last entry, written the day before we arrived, said only this: I see now what we really are. We were dead the moment we chose this. Everything since has been the corpse refusing to lie down. I stood in that office for 20 minutes, reading and rereading those words. The rest of my squad looted the building, laughed about the crazy bastard in the bear head, made jokes about his deterioration, but I could not stop thinking about that final entry. We were dead the moment we chose this. Except I had not chosen it. Had I? The judge forced me, tortured me, broke me down until signing seemed like the only option. But at what point did survival become choice? At what point did I stop being a victim and start being a perpetrator? The questions followed me back to East Boston Prep, followed me through the next raids, the next interrogations, the next batch of fresh recruits screaming in the cells below. I started watching the other jury members differently, looking for signs of what I saw in myself. The deadness behind their eyes. The mechanical way they went through violence, efficient and empty. We were all corpses, I realized. Walking, talking, murdering corpses who had forgotten we were supposed to be alive. I started making mistakes. Nothing obvious, nothing that would get me killed immediately, but small failures. Letting a prisoner escape during transport, missing a shot that should have been easy, forgetting to secure a door. The enforcers noticed. They always did. They called me in, asked if I had a problem. I said no. Said I was tired, needed more psycho, would do better. They seemed to accept that. Raiders understand exhaustion, understand the need for chemical assistance. They gave me a week to get my head straight. 7 days to either recommit or face consequences. I spent those 7 days thinking about the traitor I used to be. The man who sold water purification tablets, who believed in helping people survive. I tried to remember his face in mirrors but could only see the raider staring back, scarred and hollow and alien. I tried to remember what hope felt like, what purpose meant, what I had believed in before the torture rewired my brain. The memories were there but distant, like stories someone else had told me about a person I never met. On the 6th day, the judge sent me on what should have been a simple supply run. Solo mission? Just check on one of our stash houses near Malden, make sure nobody had found it. I went. I checked the stash. Everything was fine. But on the way back, I passed through an area called Wildwood Cemetery. Saw something that stopped me cold. A raider kneeling at an altar made of bones and skulls, arranged in patterns that suggested ritual rather than decoration. He was praying, actually praying, words I could not quite hear, hands clasped like a child asking for forgiveness. I recognized him, one of the newer jury members, kid named Russell who had been broken maybe 3 months prior. He did not hear me approach, too lost in whatever communion he sought with whatever god still listened to monsters. I should have reported him. Zeller would have wanted to know if his people were developing strange loyalties, religious impulses that might override commands. But I did not. I just watched this young man, this broken thing like myself, desperately seeking meaning in a world that had taken everything from him. When he finally finished and stood up, he saw me standing there. Fear flashed across his face. He knew being caught meant death. I told him I saw nothing, told him to be more careful, told him to get back before someone else missed him. He nodded, started to leave, then stopped. Asked me if I thought there was any way back. Any path to redemption for what we had become. I did not have an answer. Still do not. But the fact that he asked, that somewhere beneath the torture and the chems and the violence he still wanted to believe in redemption, that broke something in me that had been cracking since Bosco's terminal. I am running out of time. The footsteps above have stopped, which means they are searching methodically, room by room. But if you have stayed with me this far, if this confession means anything to you, then maybe you understand why it needs to be told. The Wasteland makes monsters of us all eventually. The question is whether monsters can remember they used to be human. Whether that memory matters. Whether it changes anything at all. The tape keeps spinning. The end approaches, both of this recording and of me. One more section to tell. The part that explains why I am here. Why I ran. Why they hunt me with such determination. The part that might be the only true choice I have made in 3 years. I went back to East Boston Prep that night. Told the judge the stash house was secure, everything accounted for. He nodded, satisfied, already moving on to the next concern. But something had shifted in me at that cemetery, watching Russell pray to gods that had abandoned the wasteland centuries ago. If he could still ask for redemption, still believe in something beyond survival and violence, then maybe the corpse inside me had not fully died. Maybe some small piece of the trader who sold water purification tablets still existed, buried beneath 3 years of blood and chemicals and screaming. I started planning my escape. Not immediately. That would have been suicide. The judge had sensors everywhere, informants among the jury, protocols specifically designed to catch deserters before they made it past the property line. No, I had to be patient, had to play the loyal soldier while gathering supplies, information, opportunities. I stashed weapons in hidden locations throughout the Commonwealth, places only I knew about. I documented the jury's patrol routes, their schedules, their weaknesses. I volunteered for solo missions whenever possible, building a pattern of trusted independence that would explain my eventual absence. It took 3 months of preparation, 3 months of continuing to raid, to kill, to train new recruits in the same torture that had broken me. Every day felt like drowning, like watching myself commit atrocities from a distance, unable to stop the momentum. But I told myself it was temporary, told myself that once I escaped, once I got far enough away, I could find some way to atone. I know how that sounds. Like a coward making excuses. You would be right. The opportunity came during a supply run to an old military checkpoint near the glowing sea. Radiation levels made it dangerous territory, which meant fewer patrols, less oversight. I told the judge I needed 3 days to properly search the area, catalog what remained. He approved it without question. Why would he doubt me? I had been his perfect soldier for 3 years, efficient and brutal and utterly reliable. I never made it to the checkpoint. Instead, I headed south, then east, then north again, doubling back on my trail multiple times to confuse anyone tracking me. I ditched my jury armor, the leather and metal that marked me as one of Zeller's people, washed the war paint from my face in a irradiated stream, scrubbed until my skin bled, trying to remove the stain of what I had become, put on the merchant clothes I had hidden months earlier, the costume of the person I used to be. For 2 days, I thought I had made it. I traveled fast, stayed off main roads, avoided all settlements and travelers. The Commonwealth stretched around me, vast and empty and almost beautiful when you were not looking at it through the lens of what to exploit, who to hurt, where to strike next. I let myself imagine a different life. Maybe find work as a guard somewhere far away. Maybe head to Diamond City. Lose myself in the crowds. Maybe even leave the Commonwealth entirely. Travel to the capital Wasteland or New Vegas. Places where the judge's reach could not find me. Foolish dreams. The jury does not forget deserters. The jury does not forgive. They caught me near Lexington, surrounded me in the ruins of an old grocery store where I had stopped to scavenge food. 6 of them, people I had trained personally, people who knew all my tricks because I had taught them those tricks. They did not kill me immediately. That would have been too kind. Instead, they dragged me to this basement, secured me with chains, told me to wait. The judge himself was coming. He wanted to handle this personally. That was 4 hours ago. Maybe 5. Time loses meaning when you know death is approaching. I found this old tape recorder in a desk drawer, probably from before the war. Amazingly still functional. Started recording because I needed to leave something behind. Needed someone to know the truth about what raiders really are, how we are made, why escape is almost impossible even when you want it more than breath. The footsteps above have started again. Methodical, purposeful. They know I am down here. They are just taking their time, letting the anticipation build, letting me imagine what the judge will do when he arrives. I can imagine quite vividly. I helped design some of those tortures after all. But here is what they do not know. What I realized, sitting in this basement waiting to die. I am not afraid anymore. Not of the pain, not of the death, not of whatever hell waits beyond this life. Because for the first time in 3 years, I made a real choice. Not survival, not obedience, not the path of least suffering. I chose to run. I chose to reject what they made me. The choice came too late, cost too much, will not save anyone or redeem anything. But it was mine. Russell from the cemetery, I hope you find whatever you were praying for. I hope whatever God you found listens better than the ones I used to know. I hope you make it out somehow. Find that redemption you asked me about. If you do, remember that even corpses can choose to stop walking. Even monsters can remember they used to be human. It does not change the past. It does not erase the bodies. But it means something. It has to mean something. To anyone else listening to this, anyone who might be facing the same choices I faced, here is what I learned. The Wasteland will offer you survival at the cost of your soul. It will torture you until compliance seems like mercy. It will pump you full of chemicals until violence feels natural. It will surround you with others who have already fallen. Normalize the horror until you forget horror is not supposed to be normal. And if you are not careful, if you do not hold tight to some core of who you are, you will wake up one day and realize you have become the monster you once feared. But you still have choices. Smaller than you want, later than you should, more costly than seems fair, but choices nonetheless. The question is whether you will make them or let the Wasteland make them for you. The door at the top of the stairs just opened. I can hear the judge's voice, calm and almost gentle, asking his people if they secured the area. They confirm. He is coming down now. I can see a shadow on the wall, growing larger with each step. This is the end of my confession, the end of my running, probably the end of me. If this story meant something to you, if it changed how you see the monsters in the Wasteland or the monster you might become, then leave something behind, a comment, a like, some proof that these words reached someone before I am silenced. Not for me, for the next person who needs to hear it, for the next trader on a road who sees welcoming signs and needs to know they are a trap, for the next prisoner in a cell who thinks signing the contract is the only way to survive, for everyone who might still have time to choose differently. The judge is at the bottom of the stairs now. He looks disappointed rather than angry. Disappointed, as if I am a promising student who failed a crucial exam. He is asking me why I ran, what I thought I would accomplish, where I thought I could go that the jury would not find me. I do not have good answers for him. I ran because I remembered I used to be human. I thought I might find some scrap of redemption in the attempt. I knew I could not outrun the jury, but I had to try anyway. Sometimes the trying is the point, even when failure is guaranteed. He is reaching for his knife now. The same knife he used during my initial torture. The same knife that has opened the flesh of hundreds of prisoners. The same knife that will probably open mine in the next few seconds. But I am not scared. I already died 3 years ago in that cell upstairs. Everything since has been the corpse refusing to lie down. This is me, finally lying down. This is me, choosing the end on my terms, with my voice recorded, with my truth told. This is me, remembering one last time what it meant to be.